and then broadcast.
Hello and welcome everyone. We're just waiting to see if we're broadcasting on Facebook before we start. Thank you. And maybe for the time being, you may use the chat box to introduce yourself and where you're from.
Who is going to first? Me?
Not yet, Mr. June.
My name is Juno Park. I'm from Korea.
So we're still waiting for the others, and then we'll start afterwards. So far, I recognize some familiar participants here. So again, thank you for tirelessly working in this movement. And I'm pretty sure that we're also reaching out to new friends. So a warm welcome to you all.
Is it already showing or not yet?
Not yet, Migo.
Um,
So again, welcome everyone to the webinar. We're just waiting to link our webinar on our FB page. Then we'll get started after this. So thank you so much for your patience. Hi, Tita Sonia from Mother Earth. So again, for the time being, you may use the chat box to introduce yourself and where you're from. Hi, Indika from Sri Lanka. Hi, Soon from Vietnam. So let's start. So welcome everyone to Learn by the Nuggets, Gaia Asia Pacific webinar series. So Gaia, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, is a global alliance of over 800 organizations in over 90 countries that has been working for a just, waste-free world for nearly 20 years now. My name is Trish Paras. I work with Gaia on network development, and I am based in Manila. So let me tell you a few words about Learn by the Nuggets. Gaia Asia Pacific is holding this following the demands from our members for a convenient Asia Pacific time to join Gaia Global webinars. The series features the work of our members, reports from Gaia experts and our members, and discussion of Gaia Asia Pacific campaigns. We are recording this live, and this will be available on the Gaia website, on our Facebook page, and YouTube channels where people may post additional questions and speakers will post their answers. So for today, we are having a webinar series on Meet Our Members, East Asia Moving Forward the Zero Waste Work Amidst the Pandemic. So this is typically inspired by our commitment towards zero waste in the region so that we will be able to promote sustainable solutions to the plastic and waste crisis, not just in the Asia Pacific, but in the entire world. What we would like to happen is to inspire more individuals, more development organizations, local government units, impact investors, and financing institutions to develop more portfolios for zero waste initiatives. For today, we'll be looking at our East Asian members' specific zero waste activities and how they move forward with their campaigns at this time of COVID. So before we dive in, a couple of points on logistics. So this nugget will last an hour and a half. Please use the question and answer section on your screen here in Zoom and not in the chat box, just to send questions to the speakers. And later, we may unmute those in Zoom for their questions, but we cannot promise that we can accommodate everyone. And of course, for those who are not camera shy, you may open your videos while asking your questions. Please remember that questions can still be posted a few minutes after the session. You can also send that through email and we will try our best to respond. If you experience any technical issues in Zoom, please connect to our technical support team through Sonia and Nico through the chat box. So just to give you a quick view on what's going to happen in the next 1.5 hours. We will have a quick introduction of our speakers. We will ask them to do that one by one, and then we lead directly to the discussion. It's very brief, but this is mostly about their organization, what they are doing specifically in regard to zero waste work in their respective countries. So let's begin. So currently, we at Gaia are celebrating our 20th anniversary this month, and we are overjoyed that our members from East Asia are joining us today. So joining me today are Angus Ho and Michelle Chung from Greeners Action. Angus Ho has been working in the environmental field for over 20 years with extensive experience in the NGO and recycling sectors, which enabled him to acquire profound knowledge in waste minimization and recycling. Under Mr. Ho's leadership, Greeners Action hosted the No Plastic Bag Day and Save Food Day under the Food Waste Reduction Campaign, which led Greeners Action to becoming a leading green group in Hong Kong that focuses on the issue. On the other hand, Michelle Chung, who's also from Greeners Action, has a 4-year experience in environmental conservation organization and an international wildlife animal rescue volunteer in Africa, South America, and Asia. So Angus and Michelle, please tell us more about Greeners Action.
Hi everyone, it's my honor to in the Gaia's webinar and share to everyone. Greeners Action is a local NGO in Hong Kong. We are focused on waste reduction, and we try to push the government and the business sector to reduce the waste. And we focus on plastic bags for almost 20 years, and also single-use plastics from takeaway box. And about 10 years ago, we also start a huge campaign on food waste reduction. So we try to promote the business sector and the residential households to reduce their food waste as well as to composting, and successfully to push the government in Hong Kong to have an anaerobic digester, to have a large-scale collection of food waste in Hong Kong. So now we also move on to the municipal solid waste amidst charging policy. So we nowadays in Hong Kong, we don't need to have any fee or charge when they dump the rubbish. So we are one of the advocates NGOs to promote this waste charging policy is already about 10 years. And it is a very long process to change the people's behaviors and attitudes when they are dumping for free. And then we are changing them to dumping with a charge. So we are still pushing the government and the Legislative Council. And so in this pandemic, me and Michelle is going to introduce more about what we are doing. And since this February, the pandemic virus situation is very serious everywhere, and also, of course, in Hong Kong. So we also found out a lot of issues about single-use plastics, and we will share more with you later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Angus and Michelle, for that very insightful. And I really find your commitments, as inspiring. And I hope this will also inspire most of our viewers and, of course, our members. So next one would be Mr. Junwoo Park from Korea Zero Waste Movement Network. He is an independent consultant in the field of solid waste and resources policies and a co-representative of Korea Zero Waste Movement Network. He is also a chair of Board of Trustees back in 2018 to 2019 in the Recycling Federation of Social Solidarity Enterprises. And at the same time, he is also a professor of economics in Sangmyung University, Seoul, Korea, particularly in environmental, public, and future economics. Moreover, part of his expertise for the Korea International Cooperation Group includes feasibility studies for foreign aid projects, field survey and policy suggestions, and at the same time, training for foreign government officials. So Mr. Junwoo, the floor is yours. Kindly give us an update about Korea Zero Waste Movement Network. Sorry, Mr. Jun, your mic's off. Yes, we cannot hear you. You just need to click the unmute button on the lower right.
Okay. Now you can hear me?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Okay. The Korea Zero Waste Movement Network is a non-profit citizen organization. It's established October 30th, 1997, so it's almost 13 years old. And we are leading social movement for establishing a resource circulation society in Korea. I'm sorry, we are sharing the screen. You see my PPT?
Not yet, sir. Hold on.
Okay. My organization is composed of 7 committees and 2 executives and other offices. The office members are 6 persons. Our activities include that mostly the policy suggestions for government, and sometimes business firms and the local societies concerning how to make zero waste society in their regions or on all the nations. We are going to have concentrate our activities on how to establish resource circulation society in Korea. One of the strategies is that we make the resource circulation villages. We make some contract with some towns and farming lands to establish a resource circulation system in that villages. And then we perform education campaigns for resource circulation. It's nearly almost more than 300 events a year. And we are leading social movement for reducing and recycling of food waste. So we are emphasizing the food waste first. And also we are trying to make more campaigns for reducing plastic waste through refraining use of disposables and refraining excessive packages. And we are going to expand the social movement for fostering reuse and recycling or all other waste. We are aiming at change the consumer awareness and culture. We are focusing on how to change the people's mind and the dining cultures, including cooking and serving practices. We also call upon the politicians that the legislation back up. So about the food waste activities, we will move to next section, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So thank you
It's
for
my
that
brief
very
explanation
useful.
about our organization.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that very useful information about Korea Zero Waste Movement Network. So moving on to the next, it's Mitsuhisa Okuno from Zero Waste Japan. He is born in Tokyo. He used to be an intern in Zero Waste Academy last November 2019. Recently, he participated in the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's open seminar to expand the knowledge of the circular economy. He also became a staff member of Zero Waste Japan last April 2020. So take it away, Mitsu.
Am I muted? No?
No.
Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Mitsu Okuno, and I am a member of Zero Waste Japan. Our organization is actually very young. We started in 2019, November 15th, and our founding member is Akira Sakano and Isaki Masato and myself, and also personnel from who's working in a forest conservation, and his name is Satoshi Ito. So prior to my experience, like how I found this organization was rather that initially I was interning in Kamikatsu for one of the highest one of the best zero waste case study that exists in Japan, and the current the head, which was Akira, wanted to expand her experience and knowledges beyond Kamikatsu to other municipality in Japan. So in order for her to kind of move step forward and expand her experiences and spread the experience and the skills that she obtained from Kamikatsu, she set up this organization called Zero Waste Japan. Now, since then, our main goal is to create much as zero waste case studies, not just limited to municipality, but to government, companies, and even in terms of education. Our goal is, because one of the challenges in Japan is to really implement this high successful zero waste case study takes a lot of time, more than 5 years, and it takes a lot of energy and effort. So in order to be more sufficient and effective and to fully have Akira Sakano's experience, more spread out, we decided to really have the education, have a service which would enable and empower a lot of these existing zero waste activists all over Japan. So since then, we've been working with government, even companies, and a lot of the times communities by providing educational content and giving directions. So in a sense, consultation in some level to expand this movement in zero waste across Japan. So yeah, and that's about it for me. And I'm excited to learn about other organizations as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mitsu. And again, welcome to Gaia Asia Pacific. So thank you so much for that introduction. Our members are doing quite a lot of amazing things in their countries. But of course, for today, we will focus on just one program or initiative per organization. So let us start with Greener's Action. For Angus or Michelle, please talk about how and why you started implementing the Shop Towards Zero Plastics or STOP program. And just to build on to that one, how many shops and restaurants were involved in the beginning up to the present?
So for my side, in Hong Kong, last year we started a program. It's like stop to use plastic in all the Hong Kong restaurants. So we think that in Hong Kong the government is not doing enough to deal with the plastic program, to the plastic problem. So that's why we apply a funding from Hong Kong government and do a 2-year project. So this project is group all the restaurants in Hong Kong. They do not use plastic, and then we group them all in one network. So all the restaurants, we have a sticker for them, and then in this, they can see the sticker, and then the customer know that they do not use that much plastic in their restaurant. So from last year, we have our 47 restaurants join this network, and then 1 year later, there is jump to 125, including Pizza Express restaurant as well. So that from these 2 years, we have doing a lot of education to the restaurant owner to let them deal with this plastic problem. Actually, Hong Kong has more than 300,000 restaurants. And then we have to group all of them into our network. It's not easy. It's quite difficult to group them all because Hong Kong restaurants, most of them use a lot of plastic. So if they want to join our network, they have some conditions, such as they do not activate to provide plastic to their customers. And then also they have some reusable container to the customer as well. So it's not easy to find 125 restaurants to join this network. After they join this network, they ask our certificate, and then we have the ceremony for them to announce to the media, also in the Facebook, to make more customers to know they are the no plastic restaurant, and then some of the Hong Kong people to like this concept, and then they will go more to their restaurant. Also, to further promote the no plastic action, and during the lockdown period, we have also another theme to do to incentive our customers as well. But we can talk about more in this part. Yeah, that's all for my side.
For the next question, so since STOP aims to educate the public to refuse overpackaging and SUPs through restaurants and shops, what are some of the significant outcomes of the program, or probably its impact to consumers in terms of the waste reduction? So still,
I think that it's difficult because most of the restaurants in Hong Kong, they use a lot of plastic, and most of them is not fulfill the condition. Because they always actively to provide the plastic to the customer when they buy the takeaway, and then just one takeaway meal maybe including more than 10 plastic. So when we approach to the restaurant, most of them, they already not fulfill our condition. And then they also think that their customers prefer to use plastic rather than they use their container. That is the hard thing we deal with when we find out the no plastic restaurant in Hong Kong. That is.
And also building from that, how do you or probably the shops or restaurants incentivize the customers to reduce their waste footprint?
Actually, we do have some incentive program for them, such as cash redemption. So when they have the meal, they take away, and then if they take their own container to the restaurant, they have some cash redemption. Some of the restaurants, they do this actively to their customers, but we have another theme to specific for this program during the lockdown period. Maybe we can talk about this in next talk.
All right. Well, that's very interesting, Michelle. So as for the others, we will entertain questions later. But for now, let's hear it from Mr. Junwoo Park of Korea Zero Waste Movement Network and their work on food waste. So, Mr. Jun, please tell us more about the Korea Zero Waste Movement Network's program regarding the reduction in food waste.
Okay, thank you. We are conducting many kinds of programs this year. Oh, screen share. Are you seeing the full screen mode? Okay. Okay, let's move to next slide. It's the first part is about our organizations. So let's skip this. I can skip this. I'm not sure. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. How do I turn the page of my slide? Can you do that or?
All right, Mr. Jun, hold on.
Come back to the first part. Okay, now, okay. This year we conducted a research project financed by the government or Ministry of Environment about food waste. Sorry, the screen is gone. Do you see my?
Hold on, sir. We're just experiencing technical issues.
It's about the survey of the status food waste generation at source. And okay, the target sources are large volume food waste generators. They are big restaurants, schools, hospitals, nurseries, public institutes, and also military camp units. We examined the generating, discharging food waste practice. We interviewed and questioned the food workers and the managers, how they are doing concerning the food waste. We checked the cooking and the serving practice. And also we surveyed the dining custom and the cultures. I think the most Asian countries, especially East Asian peoples, are nearly the same dining customs and cultures. We also checked the attitude toward the food waste, and we checked the awareness level concerning how significant the food waste issue is. Next, please. Okay. And we also surveyed some of the restaurants or schools and nurseries to find out which one, where do they well to reduce food waste before generated. So we try to study the causes and elements of success by examining the strategies and action programs. And we collected the successful cases to make a booklet with the some analysis of the success elements, and then we attach it policy suggestion for how to expand these model cases through nationwide. And next. And also we make some custom-made education programs. If a school wants to have some education programs for their students, then we check the school's situations, and then we survey the attitudes of the students and the level of awareness, and then we make a program for their students. Like these schools or other organizations, different organizational characteristics, and they have different cultural differences. So we focus on how to reduce food waste before generated, and through changing food serving and the dining practice and the culture together. And then also we consult and policy suggestions for local governments. Many local governments are trying to establish some their system for reducing food waste and managing the food waste. And also they are trying to make guidelines to monitor and supervise the food waste generators. So we try to show some good policy suggestions. How do they make guidelines? How do we establish their own food waste management systems? And next, for the government, we also propose some alternative policies and programs instead of current policies or programs. We usually held public hearings and panel discussions and seminars. We invited key Congress members and the government officials. We also asked experts and citizens to join us. And the final goal is how to press politicians to make some necessary actions. We also make campaigns for fostering the green dining and cooking cultures, targeting various classes of citizens. They include housewives, students, salarymen. And we make, next please. Can you move to next slide? Let me try. No. Oh. Wait.
Is that the slide you're referring to, sir?
I'm sorry. I don't know how to do it. Okay. We make a memorandum of understanding with business companies and the public institutions, schools, and also with the military camp units. We ask them to establish a system to reduce food waste. And also they have some action programs to implement their plannings for reducing food waste. And we regularly check how they are doing. And we also monitor descending collecting food waste and make a policy suggestions for local governments and local people. We visit the apartments and other residential areas. We check how do they discharge food waste. And also we try to find out what are obstacles and the problems in implementing, especially the volume-based food waste disposal systems. This fee system has been launched in 2014. Next slide, please. From 1995, I'm not sure, maybe 1995, we implemented the volume rate waste fee collection systems, but we did not include food waste because it's wet and the smell, bad smell. So we collect the food waste free for the time being. But in 2014, we started to collect fees according to the volume for the food waste too. So how to implementing the volume rate food waste collection fee, the local government has three options. The first is they make the standard bag for just the food waste. Then people must buy especially issued bags for food waste and put into the bag. Then you can put it in the designated places. Then the local government collect the food waste in the bags. And the price of the bag is proportional, of course, to the value of the food waste. And the second is RFID system. That's a radio frequency identification system. So each household is given a card. And if you tag the card in front of the food waste containers, then the container door is opened and you put your food waste into the container and then you tag the card again. Then the door is closed and the system weighs the weight of the food waste and is recorded to your account. And at the end of the month, it's billed. And the third option is you can issue chip or stickers for food waste. Anybody who wants to discharge food waste must buy chip or stickers from superstores or markets and small convenience stores. And then you attach to your food waste. Then it is collected. If not, the food waste is not collected. Next slide, please. Okay, you see the photo, the picture of the food waste bags. They have different sizes according to different local governments. And if you put your food waste into the yellow bag, you can put anywhere. Then it will be collected. The next slide, please. And this, I think it's previous slide, please. It's skipped in the middle. The next. Oh, what happened? Okay, this one. This is food waste contained for RFID system. The green, the gray part of the below is the container body, and the red one in front is the front panel. You can tag your card. The next slide, please. You see the, okay, the people tag his card to open the container doors. It's open, as you see. Then it is collected. Okay, so I wanted to show you how we are implementing the food waste systems. This done. Thank you very much. As I told you before, through the PPT, I have some hearing problems. So if you have any questions, please do it. But in case I did not understand your questions, please mail me later. I will answer and give you information you need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. June. So in regard to that one, what is your general assessment of South Korea's food waste? I mean, provided that you already have initiatives in terms of reducing food waste. So as of now, what do you think, or what is your general assessment of South Korea's food waste?
General assessment about what aspect of the food waste? You mean the policy or implementation or general understanding of the people or the participation? Which part do you mean general assessment?
Probably in terms of the amount of food waste.
Okay. I don't remember the exact statistics, but after we started to control the food waste through various ways, making systems or making policies or the aid of the citizen movement, I think we succeeded nearly halving the food waste value. And also, all the food waste is composted to make a fertilizer. So no food waste is landfilled or incinerated in Korea. And also, we prohibited the ocean dumping. So I think it's a half success. It's my general say, and the way we should do for the future is that how to reduce at source the food waste. After collection of food waste is well done, but I think before we make food waste, we should do something. So I think we need more role of the citizens organizations. Thank you.
So we have another question from one of the speakers, Mitsu. So what did you do with the food you collected?
The collected food waste,
Yes, sir.
all the local governments are required to to recycle, to compost. In the first time, we tried to feed animals, but because of the hygiene problems, the other epidemic problems, we banned to use for feeding the animals. Now, all the food waste are composted to make fertilizer. So local government, all the local governments have a contract with a private composting company.
And also to add up to that one, what were the challenges did you have when implementing this program?
Okay, for the composting programs and policies, we have some problems that we make more fertilizer than needed. So in the first time, the composting companies provided their fertilizers to the farmers near neighborhood for free. But now the farmers are paying
Okay, I think we lost Mr. June, but he'll be right back after this. So as for the other questions, we will be moving that to the next session. So going back, now let's hear it from Mitsu of Zero Waste Japan. So Mitsu, please tell us more why you decided to focus on developing zero waste practical case studies.
Okay, well, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation like Mr. June, so it will be but word to word. So I think when we look at the zero waste case study, with any kind of zero waste programs, it takes quite a time to not just to implement them, but to actually have a consistent practices. And in most successful cases in Japan, it usually takes minimum from 5 to 10 years when you look at one of the highest recycling or waste reducing towns. So but at the same time, we have to be realistic and acknowledge the impact of how the Japanese, as a country, is impacting negatively across the world. When you think about it, we are, I guess, according to the UN report from 2019, we're the second highest country that is producing single-use plastic. We're second, I think, next to the United States. We are also, in addition, we are the third countries that are exporting plastic outside our country. And I think that was next to the United States and Germany, then Japan. And if every single human being on this planet lived and have the similar infrastructure like the Japanese, we will probably need 2.8 more Earth, which is obviously not sustainable. So, it's as much as we would like to take time to really develop the zero waste case studies across Japan, we have to say no, we need to move a lot quicker than that. And I think to convince most of the municipality government or the companies or even the people, it's important that we come up with the case studies with a significant and a very practical examples and how that led to some positive impact to their social and economic classes. So when we look at kamikatsu, which is one of the basic case studies, I think a lot of the communities and societies, municipality in Japan, looks at it and be like, oh, maybe we could do that, and has a very significant know-how, and therefore we could probably implement them. And with that, I think it's a very interesting way to have other municipality be interested and have and because of the case studies and because there's a knowledge, it'll be a lot quicker to implement and to somehow fast forward the process of creating more zero waste practices across Japan.
All right. Adding up to that one, Mitsu, I've read from our meter members feature that aside from focusing on zero waste, your program always takes into consideration the socio-economic situation of the community. For instance, in Japan, there's this issue on the aging population. So could you tell us some more about it?
So I guess like one of the challenge that's existing in Japan within the waste context is very clear that there's too many incinerators that's existing. It's really hard to change the system when it's already foundationally just quite messed up in some level. But at the same time, it's important that we have to focus on the social economic aspect. And this is kind of it's like a two sides of the coin. One is that through what I witnessed in Kamikatsu have demonstrated that in Kamikatsu they developed this waste collection center where the inhabitants or the residents bring their waste to sort out and to be properly recycled so they could be properly recycled. So the communities, so the recycling center or the waste collection center became like a community, I guess like a mingle place where a lot of the residents will come and visit, they'll discuss, they'll have a quick chat. And maybe it was intended, maybe it wasn't, but it did bring some positive aspect where a lot of the community members got to know each other, being able to communicate with one another. So, there are definitely a lot of positive practices just by implementing zero waste. And in some cases, like when you look at the town of Osaki, so which is a little different case, they they really pushed in zero waste practices and created this fermentation facilities, and they somehow, as a municipality, had a very healthier financial situation, and they were able to allocate the funds the revenues that they created from selling recyclable goods into more to a fund that's directed towards scholarship. So there's actually how the zero waste program created enough revenue for the municipalities, and they were able to set up the scholarship so students or the younglings could actually attend college from that program. So there's that obviously that aspect of how zero waste practices and case studies have already demonstrated as successful cases. On the other hand, when you look at, like, for example, the SDGs with the 17 goals, and how this 2020 with stakeholder capitalism, I think it's important that we have to look into it with a holistic sense, that we can't just focus on zero waste and have have all the people kind of like having the same sense. We need to kind of also lay out that there's a lot of positive sense that could be brought up with introducing zero waste, and that also provides better recognition from the other communities, or have more people coming in because they think it's more livable and enjoying environment. So I guess, like, in case of Japan, the aging population is a kryptonite in our sense, because the population is decreasing. It's really hard to convince a lot of these infrastructure construction companies to come in and build a gigantic facilities, because they say, well, the municipality is dying. How can we, in the long term, we won't make any profit. Why would we want to come in? So we need to kind of focus on that and kind of make sure that they will, with a storyline that says, yes, the zero waste will bring in more people, hopefully at least, or at least balance out the influx of the people going in and out. So yeah, that's my take on it, I think. With the case studies, it's important to be laid down. It's not just about just looking at the waste, but at the same time how it benefits the environment and the livelihood of people.
Thank you for that, Mitsu. Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that aspect. So it's very interesting to know all about the wonderful work happening right now in East Asia. I'm sure that there were challenges along the way, especially now during the pandemic. So here's my question. So how is the zero waste work moving forward with the COVID and the lockdowns? So maybe we can start with Mitsu.
Okay, so from my work, well, personal work from I'll expand from my personal work. So I came back from Kamikatsu on this year's April, and that was when the lockdown was just beginning. And fortunately, our organization was originally intended to work remotely, so we didn't have to go into an office space to have our project going. So everything is done digitally, just like this. So in a sense, like there weren't that many challenges when it comes to communication or running the organization. However, there's a huge challenge once we go, when we start expanding our work outside of our office, which is that for example, our main clients are mostly communities and municipalities. We could get all the data online from, how much they're recycling, how much waste production is happening, but we need to know the people. We really need to get to find out what they think is most important. And at the same time, we also need to see the space, like the design aspect of how this municipality or the community is functioning. So we're missing out a lot of these nonverbal information that we usually get by visiting the other municipalities. And other part is that because our initial phase of most of the work begins with actual digging into putting our hands into the waste can and doing a research. So, because of the COVID-19, most, for the health reason, we can't really look into the waste and of the of like businesses or a residents. So we don't know the real picture. We still have a hard time seeing the real picture of like what kind of wastes are being produced from businesses and residents. So that's taking quite a toll, and we're doing a lot of restructuring of our plan.
Thank you, Mitsu. How about June Woo?
Yes, I'm sorry. My apology. My computer is gone for the time being, so I
No
re-entered
problem,
again.
Mr. June.
Okay. Where were we? You asked the question, the second question, right? About what's the problem of the collected food waste, right?
Maybe we can move that to the next session. But as of now, we would just like to know how are you moving forward with your zero waste work, given that there's lockdowns and of course the pandemic.
Actually, we don't have some realized programs, but we think, and as I personally think that with some different policy systems that make the people get back to the more altruism. And as the pandemic is popular among the world, and most people are more self-interested. So we usually find out that they dump their masks anywhere. And also the waste of packaging materials and the other waste from residential areas are increasing. Still, we are short of landfill sites or incinerators. So we should have some fundamental change in implementing the waste policies. And also, we must appeal the people's mind and attitude about neighborhood. And we expect more role for citizens groups. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. June. How about Michelle and Angus?
So during the lockdown period, Hong Kong government has said that the residents do not have their meal in the restaurant. So most of the people, they buy the takeaway. And Hong Kong, the recycling system is not so good. So actually, during the lockdown period, we do the survey and then estimated there may be 1 billion of plastic they throw away every week. So that's why during this situation, we have cooperate with another funding, and then we launched a new system about more plastic economic cycle. So we encourage the people in Hong Kong, they take their container to the restaurant, and then our funding will give them a cash redemption. That is around $5 Hong Kong dollar. If they have $40 on their meal, then they will minus $5 discount on that. So during this month and a half program, we encourage a lot of Hong Kong people to join this system. And then in this period, there's around 20 restaurants to join our network. So that is quite difficult to us to push the government to do some policy to change this plastic problem. But from our side as a green NGO, we try to do something to encourage the Hong Kong people to change their habits, their behavior, to encourage them to use more their own containers to buy their takeaway. Because in their mindset, their concept is like the plastic is more hygiene than a real bowl or their container in the restaurant. So they prefer plastic more than the container in the restaurant. That's why during this half year, our work is changing the mindset in Hong Kong people to encourage them to use more container from their side.
Go ahead, Angus.
After Michelle to share about what we are going on in the pandemic situation about the project on the restaurant, I can talking more about our groups in Hong Kong, how we moving on in this lockdown situation to promote the environmental educations. In fact, this is quite a lot of influence to our works because we cannot do the normal education program to the schools and to the public. And we have to move on to using like Zoom to educate the students. And we also use a lot of videos work to make some filming or video and then to publish to the people and the students so that they can learn about the environmental education and waste reduction through the movie or short video. And in order to promote the recyclings, we think it is still very important for the actual recycling happening so that people have to go out to the recycling depots. So in the lockdown situation, we will try our best to make people have less contact so that we will want to let people to have a crowd together. So we will have some kind of separate the peoples and make sure they have different distance and come to our recycling depots or recycling counter when we are doing education on the street or on the community. So this is how we try to adopt the lockdown situation and promote recycling nowadays.
Thank you, Angus and Michelle from Greeners Action. So based on what you said, these are some of the strategies that you use to continue with the work, such as you transitioned online, you probably use the lockdown as an opportunity for planning, you heightened the SUP campaigns. Do you think these strategies can be easily replicated on a global scale, or at least for some other countries in Asia Pacific? And if we look at the other Asian countries, what are some of the things that you would or would not, you think you would not work if they incorporate your strategies? So maybe we can start with Greener's Action, either Angus or Michelle.
Let me talking about our STOP program in the restaurant, and we give some incentive, money incentive to the customer when they bring their own reusable takeaway box and go to restaurant to buy the takeaway rather than use the delivery single-use plastics. I think in some country like Taiwan, Japan or Korea, I think this kind of situation may be suitable. And because I guess there will be a lot of food delivery service in your country and in the restaurant, and also the online delivery platforms is very active nowadays. But for some other Asia Pacific country like Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, etc., I think because as far as I know, maybe many shops are small vendors on the streets. They may not have a very stable place. They may be in the market, something like that. So I think in order to encourage the public to bring their own containers rather than use the single-use plastics, I think the program can be changed to give them a more portion. If they didn't bring their own box or a bottle or whatever containers, I think we can encourage the restaurant to give a little bit more portions as a incentive for those customers and help them to move on and have a better attitude and behaviors to stop using the single-use plastics. This is what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. How about Mr. June?
Recently, I observed some problem with the refraining from using the single-use plastics. We have many MOUs with big coffee shops and restaurants not using single plastic cups. But after the pandemic, people prefer the single-use plastic cups rather than their own mugs or washable plastic cups. And also the authorities allowed that if the customer wants, they can use the single-use plastic cups. So we have some problems with encouraging to use the returnable or reusable containers or cups in the restaurants and the coffee shops. So recently, medical experts reported that the risk to be contaminated is the same for the single-use plastic or the mug cups or other own cups, the washing. So the people from NGOs encouraged by this announcement, but still the coffee shops and restaurants do not want to use not to use the single plastic because the customers wants. And the second is about the distance educations. The old schools are doing the distance education through the online programs and the broadcasting the education programs. So the NGOs also make the online education programs to distribute it through the broadcasting or through the internet. But still, they are working on. So I think we must wait for some more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. June. How about Mitsu?
So regarding this pandemic situation, I think it's important to make. Well, it's not really. My focus is still on not to. it's a very mixed thing. I do not want to think it's an opportunity in a sense, but um, it's true that despite the pandemic situation, the government and the companies are still shifting towards a more circular option, more zero waste, finding alternative materials to for such tools. So it's a it's a really mixed bag in that sense, and it does give a company that is very wealthy or has enough financial stability have the energy to kind of readjust their previous strategies and they start thinking about adopting these sustainability visions. So it is a mixed bag in that sense. But in terms of like what Mr. Angus and Mr. June as well as Mr. Michelle said, in terms of education, I think there's a huge desire for the NGO and our side to work with the technology side because we could create the content, but we need something extra to do something that will follow up to ensure that the education is implemented. So we need to find we want to collaborate with technologies, people who has a technology that would help us to make sure and measure that how the implementation, the content, and its effectiveness in that sense. So yeah, I think it's the pandemic has given more opportunity in that sense for us to collaborate with other sectors that we usually wouldn't have thought about in the previous time. And in terms of this practice that we're doing in Japan, whether that be expanded, and I think Mr. Miko also asked this question. A lot of the countries, especially in Asia, look up to Japan for waste management practices. What Japanese values in terms of waste management can you recommend to Asian countries and decision makers without resorting to waste burning? Well, there are one do's and pretty much a lot of don'ts. One do is that I think one thing we could be say, yeah, we're doing pretty well is the collection rate of the PET bottles. We're somewhere around 80%. And I think one of the reasons why that is available is because a lot of these distributing companies, so the vending machines, have thought about how they would collect these PET bottles in the beginning. So that's why when you buy drinks from the vending machine, there's a waste, collection right next to it, so they could collect PET bottles very smoothly. So is to kind of think about, okay, how does when the distributor or a company that is creating beverages also needs to think about how they would collect them. So, it's like extended producer responsibility to the core. So I think that's the one do. Everything else is pretty much don't. Don't do what Japan did, which is to build a bunch of incinerators. And pretty much that just tramples every opportunities for any alternative materials, any recycling industries to grow. And I would rather advise any other countries to look at Japan and say, oh, let's not do that. And instead find alternative materials, invest more into developing these circular programs to ensure better practices pretty much. And, ensure that, because like when you look at Indonesia, Southeast Asia, they're coming up with a lot of these programs that is enabling waste pickers, finding out alternative materials like materials that's made of seaweed, and for example, plates that's made of from banana leaves, like go with that. I think you guys should really expand on that. And, at the same time, do keep in mind with the holistic view, you don't want to cut down forests so you could have a banana tree plantation. That's kind of like, you're missing the point. So obviously finding that balance is the key. So yeah, that's the answer to Miko and my take in terms of expanding our program. So if there's anything that we can provide across, it would be a zero waste card game, which is a card game that is intended for a fourth grader. So they will learn about what it means to the 7 layers of 7 R's, from reduce, now it's regenerate is on top, but, regenerate to all the way down to recycle. And, it's like those entertaining gamification kind of content is something that I think we could share with the East Asian, Southeast Asian fellows.
All right, thank you, Mitsu. So let us entertain some questions from our viewers or members. So the first one here is Elaine from the Philippines. So this question is particularly for Mr. June, but this is also applicable to all speakers. what were the enabling conditions that helped the local government and welcome these innovations or behavioral changes in the government? And second, what was the motivation that resounded among local government to pursue this zero waste direction?
The primary responsibility for solid waste is with the local government. Even though the central government make policies and helps the local government is the sole responsibility. So their key interest is how to reduce the waste value, because most of local governments are suffering from the shortage of landfill site. Recently, in metropolitan area, we had a common landfill site, very big landfill site. Maybe you can use it for another 10 years, but the mayor of the Incheon city, where the landfill site is located, declared, we will not take the waste from other cities. So for Seoul City and other Gyeonggi provinces, they have some emergency actions needed. So the local government, the only way is how to reduce waste volumes. So they don't have many options to reduce waste volumes at the sources, especially. So the NGOs must take part in the activities by the local government to educate the people and to monitor and to supervise their discharging practices. So I think the local governments and NGOs go together. I'm not sure it will be my answer to your questions.
Yes, Mr. Jun, that makes sense. Thank you. How about the others? If none, we can move to the next question.
Okay.
So for the next question, it's coming from Tita Sonia Mendoza from the Philippines. So this question is for Mitsu. The increase in single-use plastic also comes from overpackaging for products. I heard that KitKat will be moving to use paper in its packaging. Has this started? And a lot of countries, especially in Asia, look up to Japan for waste management practices. What Japanese values in terms of waste management can you recommend to Asian countries and, of course, decision makers without resorting to waste burning?
So the second question, I think I answered. Yes, kind of.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is the increase in single-use plastic also comes. So the KitKat case studies. So they did change their the bigger bag. So like the bigger bag with like 20 Kit Kats in it. They changed that into paper, and I think a lot of these major. So I guess Kit Kat is sold by Nestle Japan. So one of the top 10 polluters, I guess. In that sense, Nestle. A lot of these companies, that's very food and small sachet-oriented companies are shifting their material uses to other material which is non-plastic. Now, we need to be careful when we say that because, yes, it is. Yes, they are moving away from plastic, and they're changing that into paper. Sure, but but we have to ask the question: can we recycle that paper? And who's collecting it? And who's actually sorting it at the end? And I don't think a lot of the companies are willing to ask that question and to move forward and to find solutions to make sure that these practices are done. I think to put it critically, I think a lot of companies are saying it's not plastic, therefore it is good. And that's very short-sighted perspective. So, which goes back to the don't, which is because everything was incinerated, everything is still incinerated. there aren't that much in recycling industry. It's not that strong. So when companies want to change their materials and say, all right, we're going to change to paper, well, there aren't that many companies that can recycle paper. So they're saying, well, why do we change the paper? And there's a lot of questions based on that. But yeah, so another value is to have a long-term vision and think about the entire system perspective from the actual creation or the material to how it's would be distributed and collected and disposed till the end. And unfortunately, paper is still challenging in Japan. Did I answer the question? I hope I did.
Thank you, Mitsu. I hope you answered Tita Sonia's question, but yeah, that makes perfect sense. So since we're almost running out of time, so we'll entertain one last question. So this is for Mr. June. Which
Okay.
is most effective with volume-based food waste collection? How is the collection and treatment systems of food waste working? And how are the restaurants and hotels participating in the food waste program?
Okay. The first for the volume waste collection fee systems, we have two problems. And first of all, if I evaluate on the average, the volume has been reduced to 30%, more than 30%, I think, because it is discharged in the big containers in the apartment areas, and we take out the waters from the food waste, and we could reduce the waste volume to carry on. I mean, collect and transport to the composting facilities. But the other areas, other than apartment, then it is very difficult to find out where to place the food waste containers, because the space is not enough, and people do not want to place the food waste containers near their houses. So it's difficult to find out a place to locate the food containers. That's why we use the bag systems in individual housing areas. But in apartment areas, I think we succeeded in reducing the volume of the food waste. And what was the second questions about?
The next question is, how are the restaurants and hotels participating?
Okay, the local governments have the guidelines and the monitoring systems for big restaurants, other food waste generators, and most of them are complying with the guidelines and try to reduce waste volumes. But the problem comes from the dining cultures. Certain restaurants tried to provide basic side dishes to the customers, but some of the customers complain. You provide the more dishes, and then they make leftovers of the dishes after asking extra dishes because it's given free. But if the restaurants change their policies, they may lose the customers. So it's against the long traditions. So we have some problems. And in this situation of pandemic, the most of restaurants loses customers. And most of people want to wrap it up, the take out. So they use more packaging waste. And the packaging waste is accumulates so much. So the capacity of a local government to collect and treat them is limited. So we are trying to find out a solution. In one hand, we must encourage you to take out But on the other hand, in the waste issues, we must try to reduce the packaging waste. So we are trying to find out maybe some reusable packaging materials, or we must find out to recycle easily the packaging waste. But in the general, the recycling business suffers from the business down because the economic activities in general are reduced. The demand for recycled material is also reduced. So they don't have uh, uh, buyers to sell out their products. So we regularly have a committee for how to activate the recycled material market. Anyway, we are in the way to go to some final point, but maybe next year we will see some hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. June. So this is for all the speakers. So we have a few more minutes. Maybe you can shorten your answers in the next questions.
Fresh,
So,
can I share an idea to
all right.
everyone?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Angus.
Actually, we are in Hong Kong. Greener Session is trying to promote the bulk buying in the shop, because when we go to supermarkets, we don't have choice, and we have to buy a lot of single-use packagings, even though we just want to buy that food alone without plastics. So in other countries, they are growing up of the trend to have a bulk buying shop, so that those food or ingredients, anything, they are in bulk without packaging, and then promotes the customer to bring their own container, and then they will be charged by the weight of the food. For example, you buy the rice, and then you bring your own container or your bread or whatever, and then you just weight how many, what is the weight of your rice, and then you need to pay for that. But they don't have any packaging at all. So that we are trying to promote this. Because when Mitsu is talking about KitKat situation, I think nowadays the global factory is trying to use a lot of packagings in order to so-called to make them to be not being rotten, or to make sure that the food is fresh. But I think this is something we need to tackle all together. Not only, I think in Gaia and also in global NGOs like Big Free from Plastics, we need to have a way out about how we no more to rely on plastics to be a packaging, which is what the factories say they are trying to keep the food fresh. I think there's a lot of ways to keep the food fresh instead of using a lot of packaging and plastics. But we should have more careful ways and alternative methods, and in order to don't use the single-use plastic packaging in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. And the last question is for the Greeners Action as well. So what are the prospects of doing zero waste models in Hong Kong? Are the conditions now good to develop models in the city? If not, what should be done to make this transition happen? So this one's for Greeners Action. Probably Angus or Michelle.
I think he's muted.
Angus, you're on mute.
Got it. Thanks. I think in Hong Kong's people's are very they're very focused on the terms of zero waste. They will think it is impossible to have a zero waste city in Hong Kong, especially Hong Kong is a very high density, high population densities and fast city. And in generally, I'm unhappy to say that, but this is the truth. I don't think Hong Kong people will agree with Hong Kong can become a zero waste cities. But on the other hand, people are getting more and more concerned about waste reduction and also recycling. Actually, this is the concept of zero waste, but they may not happy about the name of the zero waste city or zero waste model. But I think we are working on it. But we still have a lot of challenge, and I don't think it is a. We still have a long way to go to achieve that goal, to so-called zero waste or very high reduction and waste recycling rate. I think the policy is not good enough. We don't have any waste charging, so people are still happy to dump as much as they can, and without any money incentive. So that this is something we discussed almost about 15 years in Hong Kong, but the government still have not finished the legislation because a lot of political argument. If not, this should be make the transition happen. So I think nowadays Hong Kong's and with NGOs and government is working very hard on recycling, and this is some good move about the last years, and especially the plastics. And we the government finally have a central plastic collection policy, so that before a lot of plastic waste is not recyclable and not sorting, so that they just dump to the landfill. But nowadays, with the government's central collection policy, they will hire some contractor to sorting all the plastics into different number, and then try their best to make use of those plastic to become the resin again. So I think this is something getting better and better. Thanks.
All right, Angus, thank you so much. And for the other questions, as mentioned earlier, we will be sending you the response via email. So thank you very much for all your questions. So before we close, may I invite the speakers to share with us some nuggets of learning for our viewers and members. Probably a sentence or two, maybe a quote that has kept you going this pandemic.
Let me first.
Go ahead.
I think there's a more solution than the problem. So let's do it.
Thank you, Angus. How about Mitsu?
Yeah, I agree with what Mr. Angus said. And yeah, I think the world is, really moving towards zero waste, more sustainable lifestyle where we could, exist for more than 7 generations. So the quote about 7 generation is always a thing. And, stay safe, everyone, is the second.
How about Mr. June?
We had many ideas how to reach for the zero waste society. And actually, some of them were realized through the policies or systems. But with the pandemic situations, I think we are a little bit further from the reaching for the zero waste. But still, we must have some time to record our ideas. And I hope we will find out a better alternative and ideas. And this webinar was the good chances to for more thinking about the future. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Angus Ho, Michelle Chung, Junwoo Park, and Mitsuhisa. We would like to thank you for at least being a role model of zero waste movement here in East Asia. And we appreciate your efforts in promoting a lifestyle that takes care of our planet, making the world aware that wasting is not normal, it requires dedication, and we really love what you are doing. So, as for our members, the viewers, we invite you to keep checking our social media, Asia Pacific and other regions, because for the whole month of December, we'll be posting about our anniversary and we will feature one founding member per region, some of our victories, and of course, heartfelt messages from our members. We will use the hashtags 20 years of Gaia and it takes a network because it does take a network to make all these amazing things happen. So, once again, thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to visit our websites, no-burn.org and zerowasteworld.org. And of course, check our social media pages such as Gaia Asia Pacific on Facebook, Zero Waste Asia on Instagram and Twitter. And we're also present in other social media platforms that is posted here. So as for everyone, remember, let's keep learning something new every day. It doesn't have to be big. We can always learn by the nuggets. So this is Trish. On behalf of the Gaia Asia Pacific team, we would like to say happy 20th anniversary to our movement. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.